It's LaTravian McCutcheon who's trying to take it in for the pick six, and he does.
It's a pull-up. Flemings. Oh, he wanted it, and he got it.
Talk about onions, that kid.
Pressure again off the edge. Wigman has Koziel. He's got room to run. Touchdown.
Stick it in your pipe and smoke it, baby.
Yes!
Welcome to the Scott Home Podcast, new season edition. Tonight, we have joined other beloved seasonal shows like Murder, She Wrote, Dallas, NYPD Blue, 2.5 Men, and Grey's Anatomy, in that we have now reached at least 12 seasons of existence. I couldn't be more excited for that, guys. But if possible, I'm even more excited that we have now reached the month of August and have moved from the offseason to the preseason. We'll have actual Houston Cougar sports happening this month. Actual college football, if not Cougar football just yet, happening this month, and plenty to come from us as we look ahead to an exciting fall sports season and just a Cougar sports season at large. And because it's our season premiere, the whole gang is here. All co-hosts, emeritus and full-time, are present and counted for. Dustin, I would normally throw it to you here, but I so love putting our good friend and my fellow full-time co-host on the spot. I'm throwing to him first here. Robert, how are we feeling about the start of another Cougar sports season? How's life treating you generally, friend?
Dude, pretty excited for Cougar sports season. I think as I was doing today's show, I was prepping for it. I went through and I was trying to find the schedule of when the first Cougar athletic event is, and I think it's August 12th. Is that correct?
Yes.
That's my birthday.
First one that counts. There's a preseason scrimmage with Rice, but the first one that actually counts, yes.
First one that counts is on my birthday. We're going to celebrate the only way I know how, with a good dinner, a cigar, and Cougar sports.
Dustin, always love to see you on here to kick off a new season. I'm specifically very excited for both the familiarity of how we usually start these and also the fresh new way that we approach it this season that was largely your brainchild. How are you doing tonight, friend?
I'm doing great. Excited to be talking to you guys. Like I said, really, through what I think is going to be a really fun twist on what is already an episode I always love doing every year. The one episode that I think really makes you kind of stop and take stock of every single Cougar program that we have on offer in a context that I really like. So excited to be here. And excited that you somehow made me think about Angela Lansbury in the opening 5 seconds of this episode. Not something I was expecting.
Always expect the unexpected when you hop onto these StreamYard calls, friend. Because we have a lot to talk about tonight, I'll be quick here with the housekeeping at the top. But if you like the work that we do here now in our 12th season, want to support it, go to patreon.com/shpodcast. That's patreon.com/shpawdcast. Of course, while we did have one pretty large piece of general college sports that we'll acknowledge extremely quickly here, that was a federal judge allowing all 2022 graduating athletes to compete under the new 5-and-5 eligibility framework. We would like to give that story some time to develop, see what effects it has for U of H sports specifically, so we can talk about it as intelligently as possible. And since we have plenty to talk about tonight, we won't spend any more time on this, but I thought that was big enough to acknowledge while also still uncertain enough that we could wait to see a little bit probably later this month the further implications, and obviously relevant to us, the more U of H specific implications here. So with that acknowledged, we'll get to one of our favorite annual start of the season traditions, making bold predictions for the start of the U of H athletics year, about the year to come, and reviewing our previous season's successful and unsuccessful picks from our bold predictions there. Dustin, I'm going to let you both introduce the topic generally a little bit more and what we are doing that's new for this coming season's bold predictions before we get to the art of prediction.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is an episode we've done pretty much every season, I think maybe starting with season 2 at the beginning of the year, just kind of looking at every single program and that U of H offers, and then kind of coming up independently or together before we do the episode, coming up together with what is a good benchmark for this program. Kind of what do we expect this program to achieve this year, and pick a question that's kind of like yes or no, they will or will not achieve this, something that we think is about a 50-50. And that's one of my favorite things about doing this episode is regardless of whether we get any of these questions right, we get any of them wrong, it's a nice time capsule for what was our expectation for this program heading into the season? Did we meet that expectation, exceed it, not get it, whatever the case may be. The only thing that I've ever felt a little bit bad about when doing this episode is that I feel like it's kind of a misnomer, right? Because we call it bold predictions, but then making a pick on a 50-50 question isn't bold, right? It's kind of There's no necessarily really wrong answer. So we have, I think, amended that this year. So this year, instead of just asking one simple question, for example, we'll start with Cougar soccer. Last year, we asked one question: will the Cougar soccer team avoid last place in the Big 12? Yes or no? They're coming off a pretty rough stretch. It only won one Big 12 game the year prior. All three of us said yes. They ended up finishing 10th out of 16 teams. So 1 point for each of us. They got it right. So what we're doing this year is similar in that we're coming up with that 50-50 proposition. But what we've done is add an actual bold prediction you can make. We thought, what's a stretch goal for this team that you can pick instead of picking the yes or no of our regular question? So for each team, for each question we ask, there's actually going to be 3 options this year. And each of us is going to pick either, we're going to say yes, we're going to say no, or we're going to take the bold pick. If you make a bold pick correct, you get 2 points, 1 point for a regular pick. As always, no points for anything incorrect. So that is, I think, the gist of it. I think if that doesn't already make sense, it'll make sense as we get into it. But as we said, we're starting with Cougar soccer, and we'll go ahead and jump right in with it. Like I said, last year we said avoid last place. We were all correct, so good start for everybody, 1 out of 1. This year we've got a slightly more aggressive question, and that is, will Houston win at least 4 Big 12 games? So you can say yes, you can say no, and our bold option is yes, they will, and they will also make their first ever NCAA tournament. So 4 games would definitely be an improvement. They've won 1 and 2 games in their 3 seasons in the Big 12. But not only am I going to say yes that they're going to win 4 games, I'm actually starting out the gates being bold here. I think Cougar soccer makes their first ever NCAA tournament this year. On the surface, it doesn't look like new head coach Ben Williams moved the needle too much in year 1. Like I said, only 2 wins again. But given the impressive results in the non-conference, including a 4-1 win over the Longhorns, this was still, I think, our best season overall in the Big 12. And we accomplished that despite some really bad luck with injuries. And also we kind of accomplished that with some bad luck from the Big 12 schedule writers. And looking forward, I like who we brought in this offseason. Last year, we only had 8 defenders on the roster, and 3 of them missed the entire year with injury. We only had 5 players that were even listed as defender. 2 of them were like forward/defenders. Don't even know if that's their primary, what we would have liked to have them do. But we had 2 starters, Charlotte Richardson and Lady Gonzalez, missed the entire year, who were full-time starters the year before. Ella Morgan came over with Coach Williams from SFA, having just won Southland Conference Player of the Year, would have been for sure a starter, also injured, missed the entire season. So really bad luck. And this year going forward, the bad news is that I think your best defender was Alex Whitcraft, and she did graduate. She's gone. But the good news is you get all 3 of those previously injured players back. You get the next top 3 minute getters in defense besides Alex Whitcraft back. So I think your defense goes from being a kind of real liability just in terms of being so shorthanded to really having quality and quality depth. In the midfield, you got Megan Donahue, who was your best midfielder last year. 2 other important ones in Ava Shannon and Casey Maddox. You brought in Ava's sister, Danielle, who was a 2-year starter for a really, really good LSU team before getting injured last year. Skylar Miller comes in after getting over 700 minutes for number 13 Tennessee. Really, really excited about the midfield group. I think the striker group is a little bit less deep, but even there you return Samira Minor, who was your best striker last year. 6 goals, 5 of those in Big 12 play as a freshman. You also get Adelia Gonda back. Lose all your goalkeepers, but Sierra McClure comes over from SFA, where she was the Southland Conference Keeper of the Year. So I just basically like what this team has at every position. I mentioned the Big 12 schedule. All 16 Big 12 schools play soccer. You only play 11 conference matches, so you miss 4 teams every year. Last year, the 4 teams that we missed finished 7th, 9th, 14th, and 16th. So we had to face all 6 of the best teams, and we missed 2 of the bottom 3. This year, we're missing teams that just finished 3rd, 4th, 8th, and 13th. So this time you're missing 2 of the 4 best teams. So this is not going to be the last time you hear me say it, but I think the Big 12 schedule writers did Houston a big favor this year in this sport. And that for later might come back up. But all that together to say that not only do I think that this team is going to win 4 games in one season, even though they've only won 5 over the last 3, I think they're going to their first ever NCAA tournament. Bobby, how about you?
Yeah, so my heart tells me yes, but that would mean you got to double your wins in Big 12 play last year. And everything that you said is true. It's hard for me to argue against that. But you're going to have to win games that you drew last season. And when you talked about this team getting 2 wins, but still looking better, I think a lot of that was games you were getting blown out before turned into draws last year. Can you convert those into wins? And those were, a lot of the draws were against really, really good teams this year. To your point, you do avoid a couple on the schedule, but can you really, what it looks like it's going to boil down to this year is, can you beat top 25 teams? That was kind of all your losses last year in Big 12 play. Not all of them, but a lot of them came against top 25 caliber teams receiving votes, things like that. I don't know if we're quite ready to consistently beat top 25 teams or really show up and win those games. I think drawing them and looking good in them, for instance, like the Tech game last year was a prime example of that. But I don't know if we're quite there. Like you, I love the roster, but it feels a year away. This team feels like they're a year away from being really good. If this question and the NCAA tournament question that you asked is the question that we ask next year, my answer is a resounding yes, depending on what happens this year. But if this were next year and everything goes to plan, my answer would be a yes if it was next year. But this year, I'm going to go with a no this year.
I'm kicking my picks off with a bang here. I'm picking U of H soccer to not just win at least 4 Big 12 games, but to also do what no U of H soccer team has done prior and make the NCAA tournament. Two things generally convinced me to go a little wild and make this my pick. Dustin took a lot of what I was going to say, that you were so good defensively last year with 3, I think, would have been either starters or rotation defenders out before the season even started. Like, that was big. You also had your regular starting goalkeeper, Alexi Gonzalez, last year. She started more games than not, but did miss a chunk of last season hurt as well. You were still able to go from allowing 2.2 goals per game 2 seasons ago to 0.78 goals per game last season. That was your lowest allowed average in 4 years to that point. Again, doing that despite not having 3 defenders who either previously started games at U of H or, in the case of Ella Morgan, started games for Williams at SFA because of those season-ending injuries. Now going into 2026, you have those 3 back, plus Amaris Bumba, who started all of last season as a freshman. Kendall Jones comes in from Texas Tech, and 2 players you alluded to, Dustin, Blake Hodgson and Jocelyn Chinea, who can either play as wing-back defenders or maybe a bit further up the field as attacking wingers as well, not to mention Sierra McClure, who played a good amount 2 seasons ago for Williams at SFA, and then last season was first-team All-Southland and the conference goalkeeper of the year. She replaces the graduated Gonzalez. In goal, you got to get better going forward in creating goals, which we saw not happen in some of those late season draws that you couldn't convert into wins, but it's hard to have a better defensive foundation. But my second big reason for confidence is how the staff scheduled this non-conference. You open the season, like Bobby talked about, Wednesday of next week on the road against a Florida Gulf Coast team that had the best regular season record in their conference. You're traveling to perennial American Conference power Memphis, hosting SEC power Vandy at the end of this month. That tells me 2 things: that the staff really believes in the team's makeup and ability to, I think, to schedule some really tough non-conference games, which you didn't really do last season. And that also, if you take care of business in some of those key non-conference games, the RPI is not going to be albatross for you like it was maybe 5 seasons ago when U of H was left out of the NCAAs. And in my opinion, by all rights, should have been in. But that's why I'm so confident. That's why I'm saying, yes, we're going to win at least 4 in Big 12 play and make the program's first ever NCAA tournament appearance.
All right, so we got 2 yeses with the bold and a no from me there. So that's a chance for me to gain some points, fellas. But we'll move on to Cougar volleyball, if that sounds good. Last year, the question was, will the Lady Cougar volleyball team return to the NCAA tournament? Sam and Dustin said no. I said yes. I was dead wrong. And the Cougs finished last place in the Big 12. But this year, the question this year is, will Houston avoid finishing in the bottom 4 of the Big 12? And the bold take is yes, and they'll be at least 500 in Big 12 play. Just for a little bit of context here, we've seen the Cougs finish 5th, 9th, and then tied for 14th out of 15 teams last year. And for me, I had to go with a no again here. I hate being the negative Nancy on back-to-back sports, but this team would have needed 6 more wins than you got last year to get out of the bottom 4. And I believe in Coach Rare. I think he's one of the coaches that I for a while I had a lot of faith in. But it's starting to get dicey, right? As I said, you go from 5th to 9th to tied for 14th. That's a bad trend. That's not the way you want to see the program go. I love a lot of the additions that this staff made in the transfer portal. but just unsure of what the culture of this team's going to look like. Who brings in that Coach Rare culture and what we're trying to accomplish? That Sweet 16 team was a while ago. You're not gonna, a lot of those players are gone, if not all of them are gone. And who's the leader on a roster filled with transfers? Who comes in, buys in, and becomes that kind of leader for this team? I think we have seen that in other sports before, where you have a lot of transfers and you maybe take a year to get your culture right or do something like that. So that's my kind of question mark. Is it's almost getting to a prove it part with Coach Rare, and what can you do in the Big 12, where before I say you're going to not finish in the bottom 4 of this conference, I kind of need to see you do it. So that's kind of my thought. I went with no here. Sam, what'd you go with, bud?
I also went with no. It almost goes without saying that every pessimistic pick I make in these is something I hope won't actually come true when those team seasons actually play out. I'm not going to do my entire volleyball preview here, but there is a case to be made that isn't a huge homer case that this team will be noticeably improved off of a poor 2025 season. There's not a ton of returning production, but returning production off of a bad season isn't that important to me, and the staff did retain some promising young players like Jillian Pitts, Alyssa Gonzalez, Lily Barron, who missed all of last season, hurt after a promising 2024, along with Tara Greenberry. You don't also have to squint too hard at most of the transfers to see why the staff brought them in. Not to mention, I'm always going to have a high opinion of David Rare as a volleyball coach. I believe this team will be improved, but like you said, Bobby, you're going to need to be 6 games better probably in conference play or somewhere thereabouts with a largely new roster not to be bottom 4. And so you're going to need to have to gel quickly, and that's tough with so many new faces. So while I hope to be wrong, and I believe this team will be improved right now, my answer is no.
All right, well, I'm glad that I'm going to break up the streak here. I'm going to say yes, Houston avoids the bottom 4 of the Big 12. I spent a lot of the offseason trying to figure out what to make of the Houston volleyball program. Like y'all have alluded to, 4 years ago, made the Sweet 16. At that moment, David Rare was approaching Kelvin Simpson at level of anybody who's a fan of this program should be worshiping the ground this guy walks on and should be praying he doesn't leave. Year after that, made the tournament, went out in the second round. Year after that, fell to 9th place in the Big 12, missed the NCAAs last year, went 2-16 in Big 12 play, like y'all have said. Now, David Rare is, from what I've seen, entering the last year of his contract. He's working for an AD who didn't hire him and is like maybe on a hot seat. And I love Cougar volleyball. It's one of the 2 sports I have season tickets for, along with men's basketball. I'm a fan of David Rare's, so I admit that I'm very much motivated to look at this roster and see enough improvement that Eddie Nunez gives Rare another contract. But I do think I see enough there to see where U of H gets back to being competitive, even if I'm not quite ready to be bold and say that they're going to be 500 again in what is a really tough conference. And I hope that will be enough to give David Rare another contract. The thing that I keep coming back to in terms of how this team looked so much worse last year than what I thought a David Rare team's floor was, is that we were just so freaking bad at serve receive, and compounded that by being bad at serving. So the end result was that Houston had 61 fewer aces and 32 more service errors than their opponents. That's 93 points you just gave away over the course of the year, essentially, which gets even worse when you then remember that when you're that bad at serve receive, it's not just about the aces you give up, it's about the serves you don't handle well, so you don't get a good attacking shot your first chance, which means you start the point on the back foot. And despite being so unbelievably bad at that, they were relatively close, despite their record, closer than you might expect in a lot of their matches and a lot of their sets. Even like on the road against good teams, had some lost a lot of
matches with the lead.
Yeah, exactly. So I really think we can see a lot of improvement here by just kind of cleaning up one thing. There's also precedent. Iowa State and Colorado both stunk pretty bad 2 years ago in this conference in volleyball. Both of them went 12-6 in the Big 12 last year. So I think it's doable. Notably, of your 3 outside hitters who received a lot of serves last year, I should say, I spent so much time looking at serve receive percentage.
I did. You can ask Sam. Last season, there was an episode where I just got down the hole and I was like, how we have as many kills as everyone else does? What is happening here? I spent like 4 hours doing it one time, so I'm on board.
Yeah.
Go ahead, bud. Go ahead.
I was going to say, of your 3 outside hitters who received a lot of serves last year, only the one with the best serve receive percentage, Alyssa Gonzalez, returns. You also return Lily Barron after missing a year with injury, and while we do need to see that she's healthy, we do need to see that she can hit at a higher clip than she did as a freshman. She had a lethal serve, and she was awesome in serve receive, and should probably see the court for those reasons, if nothing else. You also bring in Noemi Despaigne from Georgia Tech, where she was solid in serve receive. You only return one of your two liberos. It's the one who is statistically notably better at serve receive of the two. So I like this team's potential to get dramatically better, both at serving aggressively and handling serve better. I like the depth at outside hitter. I like bringing in setter Kaylee Edson from Auburn. The Tigers were like good, not great last year overall, but they hit nearly 250 as a team and were just bad defensively. So we always talk about the setter quarterback comparison. It kind of feels like you're bringing in a quarterback from a team that scored a lot of points and just was mediocre because their defense was pretty bad. So that sounds like a good addition to me. So I'm concerned about the lack of experience at libero, where your three options are a sophomore who was a little disappointing last year, a redshirt freshman transfer, and a true freshman. I'm a little concerned about the depth at middle blocker. I like the Alexis Roberson ad, played a lot for a top 20 TCU, but your other options are someone who played 7 sets for you last year, a transfer who played sparingly for a team outside the top 200 of the RPI, and 2 freshmen. So definitely questions still with this team, but I think that they have the opportunity to be a lot better, and that adds up in my mind to bouncing back to being competitive, but probably not getting all the way to 500 in a league that had 5 top 20 teams last year. The other reason, bringing back that pin that I put up there earlier, the schedule makers did Houston a favor here. 3 of the 4 teams that Houston faces twice in Big 12 play are UCF, who hasn't been that good, and West Virginia and Texas Tech, who were the 2 worst teams aside from U of H last year. And the next 2 teams who finished near the bottom last year, Cincinnati and Utah, you both get them at home for your one match. So I think you have 8 pretty winnable matches right there, but you're probably not going 8 for 8. And even if you did, you need to beat someone else to get to 500, and that's probably going to be a tougher one. So like I said, part of me, because I love the volleyball program so much, wanted to get crazy and get bold for a second consecutive pick here. But coming out of 2-16, I'm just going to say I think David Ware can coach, and I think we're going to see that with an improved team that gets out of the bottom 4 here.
So, all great points. Again, I disagree, but we do have one more volleyball question. You do get 2 points for this one if you can choose it correctly. And the question is, who leads Houston in kills? I am going with transfer Camille Gibson. She had a 387 kill percentage at Oklahoma, comes in, averaged 2 kills per set, was 4th on an Oklahoma team. So I'm going with her just for that. Played in 26 of their 27 matches. Is an outside hitter, a spot where you expect to see a good amount of kills, and that 387 kill percentage got me to say, yeah, I feel like that's going to work here.
I also went with Camille Gibson. This is one of the ones I spent a lot of time thinking about. I really wavered between Gibson and Alyssa Gonzalez, but I'm banking on Gibson, who you mentioned, Bobby, started a decent chunk of last season at OU, coming in and immediately being one of your go-to offensive players. Gibson's volume numbers were respectable, but not enormous in that most recent season at OU, but I think she'll play a bigger role here when it's all said and done. I think could have the best post-2023 offensive season from an individual player we've seen. I did also consider Gonzalez. I'll also give a look for Olivia Stringer, who was a JUCO All-American at Blinn, was arguably the best offensive player at the JUCO All for this, but I'm going to stick with my pick of Gibson.
Yeah, I'm glad to again be breaking up the sameness here. No, this was a fun question that I wanted to throw in, because looking at the roster, there's 8 outside hitters, and there's honestly 6 you could probably talk me into having a shot here. You mentioned a lot of them, Sam. Alyssa Gonzalez, one of your 2 leading outside hitters last year. I mentioned Lily Barron comes back from injury after showing a lot of potential as a freshman. You mentioned Olivia Stringer, first-team JUCO All-American. Y'all both picked Camille Gibson. Sydney Jones also played a lot in the SEC last year. But my pick is none of them. It is Noemi Despaigne. 2.7 kills per set for a top 50 Georgia Tech team is pretty solid. But what I like more is kind of what I was talking about. It's all the other numbers. Her dig numbers are really good. Her serve receive numbers are really good. Even her block numbers are pretty good for an outside hitter. To me, that says 6th rotation player. To me, that says someone David Ware doesn't have to sub out. That means she's going to be on the court more. To me, that says she's going to get the most kills over the course of the year in a category that I wouldn't be at all surprised by Camille Gibson. I wouldn't be surprised by a number of these names, but I think maybe Despaigne sees enough of the court to be the winner.
Yeah, it's a good question because there's so many possible right answers you could justify for it. Going with Cougar football next. Last season, we asked 2 questions. The first one was, would the Cougar offense score over or under 25 points per game? All 3 of us said over. We were all 3 correct, as the Cougar offense averaged 29.1 points per game last season. We also asked who would be the leading tackler. Dustin and I answered Jesus Machado. Big miss on that one. He only played 4 games and did the old I'm not playing that much red shirt and transferred in the offseason. Bobby had Corey Platt. I think also pretty justifiable pick at the time. All of us going with linebackers, but all of us were incorrect. The correct answer was, of course, interior defensive lineman Carlos Allen there. Reminder also that as much as U of H football returns so much, that Carlos Allen is a big loss there in the middle. We'll lead off.
So we also asked about six overall wins last year as well.
I missed at the top. We also asked that. We all said yes, and obviously we're correct as the Cougars managed 10 wins. So good job for all of us on the first two. Not so good job for all of us on the leading tackler one there. We have two questions to kick around here for Cougar football. We have
three, in fact.
Oh, that's right. We have the
three football questions, Sam. Come on.
If you had Bobby to be the first one to flub this, I'm sorry, your ticket is broke. It was me. We've got three. I'll go with the first one here. Everything's coming up, Bobby here. We got a little more aggressive with the win total for the 2026 season. Will Houston Cougar football win 10 or more games in the coming season? I'm going yes here. I kind of tipped my hand to all of you when I asked in our group chat yesterday if 10 wins includes the postseason. Not going to, but I will add, I'm not going with the bold prediction specifically. I'm not by any definition pessimistic about this season. Barring serious injuries to key guys, I believe this team will be noticeably better than the 2025 team. I mean, you returned just about every key guy who could come back to this team, improved key areas like O-line and running back, even with some key graduations on defense. I just mentioned Carlos Allen. I don't foresee any major backslide with either of those guys, or with guys who are key players back at every level. In my opinion, and I hope I'm a little bit pessimistic, though, on this team. This is a 9-3 regular season where, even with identical overall record, this is just a better team by the numbers. I have a hard time right now in the preseason seeing us win at Tech, seeing us win both of the Utah and K-State road games. I don't expect we'll lose both. And also have a hard time seeing us not lose a game where we're some level of favorites. And because, guys, even the best Cougar team this century, the 2015 team, still lost a game they probably had no business losing. That was that UConn team late in the regular season. If that doesn't happen, it would be the first season in my 20 now of following this program where U of H hasn't lost a game that they probably shouldn't have lost. I mean, to some people that might seem disappointing, but I believe this team, like they did last season, even at 9-3, will come out hungry in the bowl game, get their 10th win there, give this team their first back-to-back 10-win seasons in program history. But I still haven't been able to talk myself into them playing for the Big 12 championship or being at that level just yet, which of course I'm dearly wrong about. Dustin, what's your pick here?
I gotta say, it makes me very scared to be optimistic about Houston Cougar football. And setting this question at 10 wins like we did is very optimistic. Vegas has our over-under, which I believe is regular season only, at 7.5 wins. Teams making a big one-year jump usually regress somewhat the next year, like Houston just did last year. Away to Tech and Utah and Kansas State, like Sam said, looked like tough games. You could tell me this team finishes 9-4 after a bowl. I wouldn't even call that a negative prediction. That's still a healthy U of H football program that I'm excited about going forward. There's every reason to pick no on this one. It's honestly probably the best value, smartest pick. That said, I am throwing caution to the wind and being bold and saying that Houston makes the Big 12 title game. My optimism for this Houston team, a lot of it comes down to, I think we're actually going to have a good offensive line for the first time in a while, and that has me just very excited. This line blocking for a second year in the system, Connor Wegman with Amari Thomas and Trent Walker and others to throw to. Heck, this line blocking for Mekhi Hughes. I think this is going to be the first genuinely exciting U of H football offense in a long time. Defensively, I was hesitant about the Austin Armstrong hire. That's more of a tongue twister than it seems like. But he passed the first year test easily. Coaching continuity going forward can only make that even better. And while there are some questions after you lose an absolute monster in Carlos Allen, among others, I like the pieces Houston has. I don't have to squint to see this being a good defense again. And ultimately, I'm not wildly sold on anybody else in the Big 12. Texas Tech does unquestionably have the most talent in the conference. We will say that. I'm not an idiot. But they're also under 50 times the pressure that any other Big 12 team is. And that shit gets the college athletes sometimes. BYU and Arizona are good teams, but they have question marks. Utah's dealing with the coaching change. Like I said, scares the hell out of me to feel this way, but I was listening to the Split Zone Duo Big 12 preview recently. They're talking about all these other teams, and I just kept finding myself thinking, I think we can take these guys. So screw it. In Fritz, I trust. This is our year. Houston to the Big 12 title game. Let's go.
I'm going to take the exact same answer that Dustin just gave for all the reasons. Sam and I have had conversations. I don't think it's going to happen, but you can talk me into 12-0. Like, you can talk me into this team going 12-0 this year. Like, you don't know what happens with the Tech quarterback situation. There's a reason why they wanted to pay Sorsby $5 million to come to that school, because their quarterback was injured and they didn't know if he was going to be back and healthy and what he would look like coming out of it. So you could convince me week 3 he's not back all the way, that Morton's not back all the way, and he is like still messed up. And
Will Hammond.
Hammond. Sorry. Will Hammond. My bad. That's on me, guys. Will Hammond's not back all the way, right? So you could convince me there, especially you catch them early in the season. There's been a lot of drama in the offseason. Talent-wise, they just have the best lines, and that's where you win games. So I don't think it's likely, but you could sell me on Tech like being 10-2 this year, right? With one loss to us early in the season before their quarterback gets right. Utah, like you said, coaching change. And yes, you hired the longtime coach in waiting who was their defensive coordinator, and that's what they've always been good at, is their defense. But there's an attitude that changes when you lose your longtime head coach. There is a culture that's built, even if your defensive coordinator is the guy in there who did that and who built that. But so you're dealing with that. You look at Kansas State, like you guys pointed out. Kansas State comes in really good. Also dealing with the coaching change. I know it's a mama called situation where it's their own guy who's been there and he's just going to continue the culture. You still don't know exactly what that's going to look like for them. I think the team that if they were on our schedule, you couldn't convince. Like, I'd be like, oh yeah, there's a good chance that's a I couldn't sell myself on the Cougs winning that game. Like, I could, right? Is BYU? Maybe Bear Bachmeier has a bad sophomore year or something like that. I don't think that's likely, but every other team in this conference is dealing with something crazy, right? Arizona State, maybe, but they could take a step back. You have the second or third best quarterback in this conference, and we're not even going to talk about his backup and what that could do and everything there. You guys pointed out the defensive line. You lose one of the best defensive linemen we've seen at U of H since we've been fans, in Carlos Allen, but you brought in a lot of really good players. You bring in Ashton Porter from Oregon, Demarion Thomas in from OSU. Like, I haven't been this excited for a U of H football team maybe in the history of my fandom. And when I told Sam that, Sam was like, what about 2016? I was like, yes, but I also didn't think we would win OU. Like, I thought we had a shot, but I wasn't as confident in that game. And there were some other games that year where you were just kind of like, yeah, maybe 2016, I don't know if I could sell myself on 12-0. I can get there this year. I don't think it's likely, but I can get there.
So 2011 is the other year for me. I thought we were going 12-0 in 2011.
Yeah. But I also realized the conference we were in 2011,
right,
and that there was no playoff for us to, like, we weren't going to crash that, right?
Right.
I could see us winning the Big 12 and playing in the playoff this year, and that is a level of excitement that I don't think ever experienced with Cougar football heading into the season. Once 2015 started rolling, and you were kind of like, oh, cool, this is going to be fun, but but preseason wise, I'm really excited about this football team. So I am yes over 10, and I am yes to make the Big 12 championship.
So our second football question, we're looking at superstar freshman quarterback Keyshawn Henderson. The question is, will Keyshawn Henderson have at least 300 total yards? With the bold prediction here that he will have at least 500 yards, with Wigman starting at least 10 games. I realize I was the least optimistic or least bold of the three of us about the overall team prediction here, but I'm going yes, and I'm going with the bold prediction that Henderson will have at least 500 yards while Wigman starts at least 10 games next season. A little tease of something I might have wrote up that'll be coming out in the next week or so. But I took a look at other programs who brought in elite tier quarterback recruit while there was an established quarterback starter there. Some other programs from the past 7 or 8 seasons. And my biggest takeaway from that was even the situations where the star freshman didn't become the regular starter in his first season, which again, I think will be the case here. I think if Wigman stays healthy, he's going to be the starter all or nearly all of this season. Those freshmen still saw enough of the field to accumulate around that 500-yard total as an average that we used for the threshold in our prediction here. Again, I'll reiterate, I don't believe any scenario where Connor Wigman is healthy and loses his job occurs here, but I also expect to see Henderson a fair amount on the field this year, more than your average second-string quarterback, because frankly, I don't believe you can keep an athlete as good as Henderson off the field entirely. There's also a chance that Wigman, who's had a good amount of injury history in his career, misses at least some small amount of the season. That was part of my bold prediction here as well. So I'm going yes, and yes, he will have at least 500 total yards. Dustin, what are you thinking here?
Yeah, I went with yes on this one. I went yes, but not the bold prediction here. My context point that I tried to come up with was Zion Chris having 187 last year, but it's not really context because they weren't trying to play Zion Chris the way that they're going to try to play Keyshawn Henderson this year. I agree with you. Connor Wegman, if healthy, is the unquestioned starter throughout the entire season, and I'm inherently skeptical of anyone who kind of suggests or hints otherwise. But like you said, very clear that Willie Fritz is going to get Keyshawn on the field as much as possible. My default assumption is maybe a drive per game. Any game that gets out of hand, you try to get him in there pretty quickly and kind of encourage him to keep running the offense. And I think that's enough opportunity to get him to 300. Didn't go bold with this one. I do feel like 500 is kind of a lot. And I do feel like the most likely scenario of him hitting 500 is Wegman gets hurt, which, like we said, we excluded in the question because I didn't want anybody boldly picking our quarterback to get injured. That didn't seem correct. But sometimes quarterbacks do get hurt, and if Wegman does get hurt, then the bold one fails, and then the Keyshawn 300 almost certainly hits. So that makes it easy for me to pick a yes here. That feels like the best value here. So I went with yes.
Yeah, I went yes here as well. I think if it was pre 5 for 5, I was on the train that he was going to redshirt, and I don't know if he would have gotten the playing time. But with 5 for 5 now and redshirt's kind of becoming obsolete, I definitely think we're going to see him in probably 7 or 8 games. And I think a couple of packages here, a blowout game like you said, Dustin, where he gets some extended drives, got me there, but not quite to the bold.
I mean, there's a good chance he plays the entire second half against Southern, a healthy amount of mop-up action also potentially against Oregon State and Georgia Southern in there, maybe a Big 12 game or two that gets out of hand as well. So that was part of what went into my prediction there as well that I did not mention. And our last football question, we asked who will lead Houston in tackles, and like the volleyball one is 2 points for the correct pick here. I'm going with Kentrell Webb. Normally a defensive back leading in tackles is some kind of negative indicator, but Webb was your number 3 tackler on last year's team. And if anything, I expect he'll have an even better 2026 season. He's going to be a 3-year starter here, 4 years going back to starting for any Willie Fritz team to his redshirt freshman season at Tulane. When it's all said and done, I don't know if he'll have 100% of the season we saw from AJ Halsey 2 years ago, but I think he could have a similar season in 2026. And that's why he's my preseason pick for tackles leader. I mean, last time we did this, I think we all got too laser focused on picking a linebacker. Not that I don't believe that there are linebackers on this Cougar roster who can be the leading tackler here, but I have a good amount of confidence in my pick of Webb.
I like it. It did feel silly that we all picked linebackers, which, obviously should have guessed an interior lineman would lead the team in tackles. That's the thing that happens. But even last year, your number 2 was a linebacker, which I think is kind of what you expect. It was Jalen Garner, and he's gone. Last year's number 3 was Kentrell Webb. And all 3 of the top 3 were very close. So, it really could have probably, little things go a little bit different here or there. Could have been any of those 3 guys. So Kentrell Webb, I think, very much a legitimate pick here. That said, I am going back to assuming a linebacker is going to lead the team in tackles. I think that's what's supposed to happen. From what I've seen, the most likely starting linebackers are returnee Sione Fotu and Ole Miss transfer Jaden Yates. I'm going with Jaden Yates of the 2. No real major reason, just kind of a vibes pick for the most thing. I think Fotu will have probably a bigger role than he did last year, but even with a significant role last year, ended up at just 56 tackles. Yates, as kind of a rotation guy for Ole Miss, had 55, just one less. The year before that, he was at Marshall. He had 120. So he's shown that he can rack up the tackles if he is kind of a lead linebacker in a system, which I expect is what he'll be. So I'm going with Jaden Yates here to lead the team in tackles.
All right, so we're going to have 3 different answers here. I am going to go with Latravion McCutcheon. I thought he had a pretty good season last year. You saw him kind of flying around the field a lot. One of the things when I was at Media Days last year that I was like, who's someone who's kind of being slept on this year on the defensive side? And just about every guy told me Latravion McCutcheon. So I'm going to go with him again, or I'm going to go with him this year because now he's a little bit older. I think he's going to find his way into the lineup a lot more. And it's so funny. Last year they told me to just kind of be able to look out for him. He's flying around everywhere. And he did that last year. So I'm going with him this year.
I love it. I was sure one of you was going to pick Fotu, and I almost picked against him just because I thought y'all were going to pick him. So
I did almost pick Yates. I did almost pick Yates, Dustin.
Yeah, we've got 3 different picks, and I think they're all 3 legitimate picks. And we have another guy that we didn't pick that I think is also a legitimate option here. So should be fun to see if we're just
That's why this team's winning 12, boys. That's why this team's winning 12.
All right. Well, that brings it back to me. And the next sport we've got is men's basketball. So last year we had 3 men's basketball questions. We asked, will the team win a Big 12 regular season title, regular or postseason? I thought y'all were being ridiculous downers. Y'all both said no. I said yes. You were, of course, correct because we finished runner-up to Arizona, both in the regular season.
I'm not happy I was right there, boys. I'm not happy I was right there.
In the Big 12 tournament. The next one, we asked, will a U of H individual player win a Big 12 individual award? We all said yes. I thought this was a pretty easy one. We were all wrong. None of them didn't win player or freshman or defensive player or 6-man, none of that. All the individual awards went to other teams. And then finally, another one that we whiffed pretty hard on. We asked which freshman will score the most points. I remember we had a lengthy debate between Chris Snack and Isaiah Harwell. I remember Sam throwing out Chase McCarty and me forgetting Chase McCarty was a freshman and going, oh, you know what, that's like a sleeper good pick. I don't think we even considered the guy who, of course, was our leading scorer as a freshman, and that was Kingston Fleming. Not only did he have the most points among the freshmen, he had the most points, full stop, on the team. So we didn't do great. We didn't do great on the men's basketball questions. We'll just say that. This time around, we've got 2 questions. The first question is, will Houston make the Elite 8 and or win the Big 12 regular season title? So if they do one or both, you get a yes. Otherwise, you're going to say no. And then our bold prediction is yes, and they will in fact advance to make the Final Four. Our second men's basketball question is, once again, since we did so poor, we generalized it this year and just said who leads the entire team in scoring, and again, 2 points for a correct pick. So we'll take that first question first. Will Houston make the Elite 8 and or win the Big 12 regular season title? And after getting burned being optimistic last year, I'm going to say no on this one. I would literally typed up my notes on this one. I had typed up my yes answer. And then I saw within the last day or two that Arizona signed RJ Godfrey from Clemson, very nicely plugging the one major hole in their roster, the lack of a good starting 4. I think it gives them the roster to make them the clear favorites in the Big 12 this year. My original thinking was, well, Arizona probably taking a step back. Houston maybe a small step back. No one in that next tier, I think, really looks like they've put together a sure thing roster to challenge for a Big 12 title. So my thinking was kind of like, maybe 40% chance Houston wins it, 40% chance Arizona wins it, 20% chance, Kansas or Iowa State or someone makes a surprise and wins it. And then, the Elite 8, it's a tough thing to do. Even with a good program, it's probably a less than 50% chance. But my thought was like, all right, if you got like a 40 and a 30% chance or something, you add those together, you get above 50. So I'm going to say, yeah, we're going to do one of the others. But like I said, I just feel like Arizona is the team to beat in the Big 12 right now. I think the Elite 8 is a big ask, even for a really good program. So even though I don't love Arizona's point guard transfers as much as some others do, I think they're the clear favorites. They've got the best overall roster. So hopefully after being overly optimistic last year, I will be wrong in the other direction this time. I'm saying no, they will not. They will neither make the Elite 8 nor win the Big 12 regular season title. Bobby, what say you?
Yeah, I'm going to go no as well, not because I don't think this team won't be really good. I think this team's going to be really good. It's just really effing hard to make the Elite 8. Like, that really says something about where we are as a program, that, like, our 50-51 is like, are we going to be a top 10 team in the country? It's like, oh, yeah, of course we are. Of course. Why would we not? It's just, like, the Sweet 16 is just what we do now, and that's just kind of what we expect this program to do. Like, of course we'd make a Sweet 16. We have the longest streak in the country of Sweet 16 appearances. Like, there's no one better at making Sweet 16s than us right now. It's insane, and we forget how hard it is to do that because Samson has made it look so easy. The Elite 8, though, is just so tough. One bad game at the wrong time, and you're out of it. And even the Big 12 title is hard, especially in the regular season. To do that, you pretty much got to be a top 10 or a top 3 KenPom team. Like, you look at every year we've been in, obviously, like, we've done really well, but to win the Big 12 championship, you got to be one of, like, the top 3 teams in KenPom. And so it's just really hard to do. Like, you can be a really good team and not be a top 10 team. You can be a really good team and be 7 in KenPom. Like, there are schools that would kill to consistently finish in the top 10 of KenPom. And, like, we just do that. Like, that's just something we do. And we just have to remind ourselves sometimes that it's really hard to make Sweet 16s, let alone Elite Eights, let alone Final Fours. So I'm going to go with no, but again, I wouldn't be shocked if this team does make a run to the Final Four and all the pieces come together and they gel really nicely. I don't
Yeah.
I don't think it couldn't happen. I just don't think it's the most likely scenario here.
I'm actually saying yes. I'm not going all the way with a bold pick. And it is actually because I believe this team will be going to the Elite Eight, though I do believe Arizona, rightfully the preseason favorites at this point, but I think they're a little more gettable than they are last season, though, again, rightly the favorites. And my logic here is that this team in many key ways to me resembles that 21-22 Cougar team that finished their season in the Elite Eight. There are differences, of course, because it's rare you can compare a team historically in every meaningful way and have it line up neatly to the one in the present. But I remember that team like this one was coming off a season where lots of key players graduated or went pro, guys like Grimes, Deke Giroux, Gorham, Reggie Chaney, and ended up surprising a lot of people. One of that 21-22 team's biggest strengths was having a point guard who ended up really being the lodestar of that team. That season, it was sophomore year Jamal Shed, and this year, I believe, will be Dedan Thomas Jr. That team also had a very deep veteran front court with Carlton and Fabian White, like this one does, in my opinion, with Tugler, Delrico Gillespie, Erfan Diane, and Braden East. This is not me saying people don't respect U of H nationally. If anything, the fact that U of H is still rated well within everyone's preseason top 25 off of losing 4 starters and 2 first-round picks, including maybe the best freshman in program history in Kingston Flemings, that tells you how much respect there is for Kelvin Sampson and Cougar men's basketball. But I still believe this team will surprise people, and that's why I have them going pretty deep in the NCAA tournament, making the Elite Eight, and that's why I'm picking yes here, because I really do believe this team has a lot of the ingredients, even if you don't have the flash and the sizzle of Manuel Sharp going into his final year in the program, to elite freshman recruits in Flemings and Sinak. I just think the fundamentals are here for a team that can make a very deep NCAA run and contend and potentially win the Big 12 title.
I'm glad that someone is being optimistic about little old Houston Cougar men's basketball here.
Somebody's got to do it. It's honest day's work here.
We've made it, knock on wood. I hope I don't jinx it. We've made it through 7 questions without all 3 of us agreeing on one answer. So hopefully that continues. That makes me feel like we're picking good questions to throw out here. So next question, I think another one there's a lot of potential answers, and that is who's going to be the leading scorer on this year's team. The projected starting lineup everybody seems to have is Dedan Thomas at the point, Mercy and Chase on the wings, JoJo and Delrico Gillespie up front, Corey Hadnot first guy off the bench. And honestly, I could probably talk myself into like any of the 6 of those guys leading the team in scoring. I know throwing JoJo in there maybe is a bit of a stretch, but I'm just continually waiting for the athleticism and the talent to come through on the offensive end a little bit, and hopefully JoJo's first healthy college offseason will, in fact, unlock that. That said, I'm not going with JoJo. I'm going with Dedan Thomas. He looks like the one true high-level college point guard on the roster, and I think that keeps him on the court enough to lead the team in scoring, especially given that all the other guys I mentioned, I think they're all going to have their games or stretches of games where they are the guy, but I think that means that also each of them is going to have stretches where they are not. Basically, since I expect a bunch of guys to share the scoring load, I'm going to go with the guy that I think will get the most minutes, and I think that is Dedan Thomas. Bobby, what's your answer here?
Actually, he was my number 2, and I really like your rationale there that he's probably going to be your point. He's going to have the ball more. But I went with Mercy Miller, a guy who no one has accused him of not being able to score. Whenever you talk about whenever you hear Coach Sampson talk about him, it's not about him on the offensive side. It's about him on the defensive side. And I would imagine he's been beat over the head enough with it by Coach Sampson. And I think he's going to play quite a few minutes because, honestly, if he didn't kind of get some assurances that he was going to be on the court a decent amount, he probably wouldn't have been a Houston Cougar this year. So I think he's going to be on the court a lot more this year. And like I said, he's never been one who people think can't score. So I am going to go with Mercy Miller here.
I also went with Mercy Miller. If we were assigning confidence ratings to our various picks, this wouldn't be on the low end for me, not for any lack of confidence in Mercy specifically. This has more to do with the number of other players in the roster I feel like could make a good case for being that leading scorer. I spent a lot of time thinking about answering Dedan Thomas for this one, like Dustin did, because despite being a true point guard and his ability to set up other players and run the offense, he's also a gifted scorer. At one point, he was my pick here. Chase McCarty, I haven't heard him mentioned. He had some freshman inconsistencies last year, but also flashed the ability to score in a number of intriguing ways. Corey Hadnot will be making a major jump in the level of competition, but does have experience an instinct of being a go-to scoring guard as well. But I'm betting on Miller here, finally putting it all together off of a much improved, but still somewhat inconsistent sophomore season, being your Cougar leading scorer in 26, 27. I think this will eventually come down to fractions of a point at the end of the season when it's all said and done. This is going to be a very balanced team. Part of why I was high on them in our last pick here.
All right, well, let's move on to women's hoops. I always say like basketball, but the way Dustin always puts this on here is hoops, and he does it every year, and it just cracks me up. It's just one of those small things is on the charts. It says hoops,
it's fewer characters in the grid. Like it just makes it easier.
I understand why you do it. It's just something I'm always like, hoops. It just makes me laugh a little bit. These are the little things behind the scenes, folks. Last year, the question was over under 3.5 Big 12 wins for Matthew Mitchell's crew. I was also very optimistic, we'll say, about this team last year. My bold prediction was that the women's basketball team would at least make the NIT. Unfortunately, I was incorrect with taking the over here. Dustin and Sam both went under and were correct there, with the Lady Cougs getting one Big 12 win last year. So this year, we're going to go, will Houston win at least 4 Big 12 games? Like I said, last year, they won one against Cincinnati on a buzzer beater. So for me, I said, much like soccer, I went with no, not because I don't think this team is going to be greatly improved. I don't know if you're going to get 3 more wins out of it. And my initial thought was yes. But I just feel all the transfers you brought in have more than 1 year of eligibility left. You're clearly trying to build something here. You're trying to build a culture, and I don't think it's quite their year to take that step, but I do think you're going to win probably 2 or 3. I would love to be wrong here, and I wouldn't be shocked if I was wrong, right? I think, Dustin, you chose this one. This question. I think you did a really good job. I think 4 is a great number. I could definitely see them getting there, but I don't think you're quite there yet. I love what Coach Mitchell's doing with this roster and what he brought in terms of the transfers. I think there's a lot of talent, but it is a very young team that you do see building in the next couple of years. And so, unfortunately, I went with under 4 Big 12 games here. So, Sam, what'd you go with, bud?
I'm going yes. I'm not going all the way with the bold prediction. I really spent a lot of time here trying to convince myself to take the bold prediction. Couldn't get myself all the way there.
The bold prediction was 7 wins. I don't think Bobby said that. So the bold prediction.
That's on me, fellas. That's on me.
But I had no problem convincing myself that we'll see at least 4 Big 12 wins from Cougar women's hoops in the coming season. I don't believe there will be a more improved team in the entire athletic department in a men's or women's sport in the coming season, just considering partly where the team was last season as well. I mean, your headline name coming in from that transfer group that Bobby mentioned is Justice Carlton. And I could tell in the women's basketball world that her commitment to U of H, joining her sister, freshman Madison, gave Cougar women's basketball headlines and legitimacy that the program hasn't had in a good long while. But the improvements weren't just Justice Carlton. You have an elite mid-major scoring guard in Reagan McCowan coming in, along with JUCO All-American Esmeralda Enriquez, Spanish youth national team point guard Marta Yompart, an elite rebounding post player from the low level in Elodie Lutbert, plus transfer guards Kaylin Hamilton, Jemiah Williams. It's a deeper and more talented team, top to bottom, capable of doing things that the last couple of Cougar women's basketball teams just could not do. I won't get over my skis just yet, but I expect this to be easily the best women's basketball team UH has had since moving to the Big 12 conference, so I was confident picking at least 4 Big 12 wins here.
Very pleased that last year Bobby was the only women's basketball optimist, and this year he's the only women's basketball pessimist. I also said yes, they're going to win at least Big 4. I didn't get bold. I just said yes, they're going to win at least 4. Matthew Mitchell definitely still in the trying to show proof of concept stage with only 1 Big 12 win under his belt. And like Bobby said, this is a roster that only has 2 seniors on it. So the main thing that I want to see is this year is setting the stage for a successful 27-28 campaign. But I think the pieces are already there to achieve semi-respectability. You heard Sam mention it. But I mean, I think the number one thing that I see, the one thing that could change that I would not be picking no, and I wouldn't even, it would be the absence of Justice Carlton, because she is what makes me confident in this team. Without her, I'm so much less sold. You mentioned a lot of the players, a lot of talented players who I think can be good players in the Big 12, but I'm not sold, right? Esmeralda Enriquez, JUCO All-American, great, but JUCO to Big 12, big leap. Regan McCowan and Elodie Lutbert, small conference of the Big 12, big league. Marty Ompart coming to a new country, trying to get, settled in one of the highest conferences. That's asking a lot. Janiyah Williams, great recruiting profile, hasn't really played much as a college. So there's all these players who go, yeah, I could see it, but I'm not sold. But in Justice Carlton, Houston has a proven quantity. Someone who played 72 games over the last 2 years on back-to-back Final Four teams, including 28 starts last year. Someone who can play multiple positions, who basically every team in the country wanted in the transfer portal. I just think all those questions, is this player going to work? Is this player going to work? I think all those questions have such improved odds of coming true when you've got that sure thing to build around and off of, which you have in Justice Carlton. So I also think, say it with me, everybody, the schedule writers are doing Houston a favor this year. The three worst Big 12 teams aside from Houston last year were Cincinnati, UCF, and Arizona. Houston's getting all three of them at home, and two of them, Cincinnati and UCF, you're getting them again on the road as two of your three home and home games. That's 5 games right off the bat that are against teams that were already kind of in your orbit a little bit last year. If Houston is genuinely improved, like I think they are, if you win 4 of those 5, boom, you don't even have to beat anybody else. You've already hit your target. Even if you go at least 3-2, which I think they can, you only got to find one more win from somewhere in the rest of the conference. So feeling relatively good about the yes. Kind of tempted to get bold and go for 7 wins, but I think 4 is a target that Houston can hit this year.
All right, and then we have one more women's hoops question, and that is, who leads Houston in scoring? 2 points again if you get the correct pick. I'm going with Justice Carlton. She is the best player on this roster. Like Dustin said, she played 72 games on a Final Four team. I think she's going to bring a level of offense and a level of player we probably haven't seen in a long time. She's head and shoulders, in my opinion, probably your best player, and it's not even really close. And she's going to get quite a bit of work next season. So, Sam, who you got?
I'm going to go Oppo you here. I gave a lot of thought to Justice Carlton being my pick, and I do believe she'll be one of the top 2 scorers in this Cougar team. But I picked Regan McCowan because she has that scorer mentality from her time playing admittedly lower level college basketball for Western Illinois. Her last fully healthy season in college, she averaged over 22 points per game for WIU as a sophomore, even after coming off a freshman season where she was one of the top first-year scorers in the entire country. So you would assume she was the top name on every scouting report that season, yet was still one of the top scorers in the entire country while still improving her efficiency numbers that season. The roster, you have Justice Carlton here. It's obviously not going to be a one-woman show with McGowan, but I picked her because she has that scoring ability at the D1 level that no player on last year's roster had, and is one of the reasons why, along with Justice Carlton, along with just a deeper, more talented team generally, Cougar fans should expect serious improvement from Cougar women's basketball. You convinced me on Carlton. I think that's probably the most logical pick here, but I wanted to try to go a little bit oppo because I figured one or both of you would take Carlton, and I'm picking McGowan for Cougar women's basketball leading scorer.
I'm a little annoyed because I organized this entire thing to make sure that I got to pick last year because I was stuck between those 2 picks, and I was hoping you guys would both pick the same player so I could pick the other one because I didn't know what I wanted to pick, and now I've got to actually make a pick. Because you'd think, again, Justice Carlton does seem like the obvious pick. And what Bobby said is true. She's going to be the best player on this year's team. That much is I don't think really much question there. But the best player doesn't always score the most points, and I think what Houston's going to ask her to do is a lot of defense and rebounding and leadership, and yes, scoring. You got to imagine she's coming here expecting a bigger role. But Regan McCowan is more of that, like, hey, I'm here to score points. That's my role. I'm here to score points. So I was very, very torn between the 2, and now you guys are making me pick. I'm going to land on Justice Carlton. I think with a bigger role here this year, I think that she ends up getting, putting up scoring numbers a little bit more than what the Longhorns were asking her to do. I think that Houston's going to ask her to be a bigger part of the offense in addition to the other things that she does well. So I think that McCowan's scoring comes down a little bit in a tougher conference. Carlton's scoring ticks up a little bit in a bigger role, and I'll say Justice Carlton edges out the scoring title for the Cougs there.
And next we have Cougar men's track and field. Last season we asked 2 questions. We said, would U of H have the 100-meter Big 12 champion? I said yes. Bobby and Dustin said no. Bobby and Dustin were correct, as Mason Lawyer from Arizona won on his home track with Louis Hinchliffe and Dakari Charlton from the Cougars finishing 2nd and 3rd. We also asked, would Cougar men's track have 2 top 10 individual finishes at NCAAs? Dustin and I said yes. Bobby said no. And Bobby was correct, as Andrea Mita at NCAA Indoors was the only top 10 NCAA finish you had in the last track and field season. For the current season, we were only going to be asking one question. That is, will U of H have a top 25 finish at one of the NCAA championships? And the bold prediction here is yes, and they'll have a top 10 finish. I'm going with yes. I'm not all the way to the bold prediction here yet. At the NCAA postseason level, it's hard to argue that last outdoor season wasn't a disappointment relative to expectations. And that's not just historic expectations, but even compared to what the program has generally done under the leadership of Will Blackburn and Carl Lewis. Even in that context, I think disappointing season. I'm still bullish on the long-term prospects of Sean Aibobo going to a sophomore season and eventually becoming another in a long, long line of great sprinters who have come through the Cougar program, and just generally the ability of Carl Lewis in this program to bring in and develop promising sprinters, both from the prep and transfer ranks. You also have promising field athletes like Andrea Mita, your only top 10 finisher last season, and CJ Woolkeji, who I don't expect to collectively be shut out at NCAAs as well. That I'm not going with a bold prediction specific to the sport tells you I'm not absurdly optimistic just yet, but I also won't treat last outdoor season as the norm and predicting the negative here just on the basis of that one season. Really, I also want to see Mita, probably the best high jumper to come through this program this century, finally get on the podium at an NCAA championship. And I think given the year-on-year improvement, as much as he had a poor outdoors at Eugene a couple months ago, I think he's capable of doing it. So I'm saying yes, but not going all the way with a bold prediction. Dustin, what do you think of this one?
I'm gonna say no. I'm saying the Cougs won't have a top 25 finish. And again, with Mita coming back, Houston's going to have a strong potential NCAA scorer to help them out, but graduating some of the other top performers off of a team that already failed to make an impact at the NCAA level this year, you're losing Louis Hinchliff, Dakari Charlton, Kanan Worry, who won a Big 12 title for you. And again, this is always one of the last teams to get a new roster up for the new year, so who knows, maybe the staff is bringing in some real dudes to make this team nationally competitive, but at the moment I stand kind of skeptical, and I realized as I was looking back at what this team has done the last 3 years in the Big 12, I think I'm more pessimistic about this program than I have any right to be. The Big 12 experience has made it even more clear that this program's focus is on outdoors, but in that area, they've objectively done well, right? In the 3 years in the Big 12, we've had a 6th place and a 19th place finish at NCAAs, and we finished 3rd at Big 12 championships twice. If any other sport was coming off of back-to-back 3rd place finishes in the Big 12, and had just admittedly had a dud at the national level, but that was after back-to-back years where you were the sixth and the 19th best team, we'd be like, this program is doing unbelievable. So I acknowledge that my gut feeling is more pessimistic than the facts objectively support, and I hope that I'm proven to be an over-worrier. And maybe, I think that is just me reacting to the fact that there is a higher bar around this program compared to other U of H programs because of the recent and historical success. From 2018 to 19, we saw this team finish 3rd, 2nd, and 3rd at 3 straight NCAA championship events. Under Coach Burrell, it really felt like if we had a year where everything really broke our way, we had a shot to win a team natty, and and winning individual event natties was something that we were just kind of probably do on a semi-regular basis. And those things feel a lot more out of reach at the moment. All that to say, this bold prediction question isn't asking, can we reach the heights we saw under Coach Burrell? It's asking, can we finish top 25? And this coaching staff, the one we have right now, has done that 2 of the last 3 years. Like I said, with the guys who are graduating, I think for me, it's a little bit too much wish casting on an unknown recruiting class to say yes. So I am a no on this one.
Yeah, I'm going to go with yes here. For all the reasons Sam said, it's almost like he copied my notes exactly. He didn't, but that's exactly what it feels like. This team has been... I have enough faith in this program that one bad season doesn't shake my faith. And are they going to be able to put up a good season and finish top 25? This program has consistently been a top 25 finisher. Dustin, I totally see your point about you lose a lot and you don't really know who you got coming in. But there's enough faith that I have in what the staff does. To your point, you finished 19th and 25. The year before, you finished 6th. Like, it doesn't seem out of the question that top 25 is just something this program does. It's almost like what Samson's been doing, like I had mentioned earlier. So I don't suddenly think after one bad season, and I wouldn't even call it a bad season, a bad NCAA outdoors. Really, you had a bad NCAA outdoors, but you finished 3rd in the Big 12. You had a lot of really good runners in the Big 12 races. We mentioned them. Now Hinchcliffe has moved on and things like that, but overall I think this is a consistent top 25 program, and it would be foolish of me to not think that they are going to continue to just be a top 25 program.
All right, next up we've got women's track and field. Last year we had 2 questions here as well. We asked, will Houston win any Big 12 individual event titles? Sam said yes. Bobby and I said no. The Cougs got real close, had a handful of second place finishes, but no winners. And then we also asked, will this team finish the top 10 at either Big 12 championship event? Sam and I said no. Bobby said yes. Unfortunately, they finished 12th and 14th. So the answer there was no. This year we're dialing it back a little bit as they weren't able to get top 10. So this year we're just asking, will they finish better than 12th at either Big 12 championship event, something that they have not done the last 2 years, coming off of 3 14th and 1 12th place finishes the last 2 years. So I am unfortunately going to say no here. 12th does seem to be their, like I said, this seems like it's been their ceiling the last couple of years. And there are some athletes coming back to get excited about. Shiana Hall had a super exciting season in the triple jump. You're getting the majority of your relays back. But at the same time, Miracle Thompson, a big loss to graduation. And for me, the thing that kind of pushed me from yes to no on this one was realizing that Cleo Ajapong was not on the 2027 roster. A little Twitter sleuthing seems to suggest she might be in the transfer portal. That's a huge loss, if true. And like I said, it seems like she's not coming back because they put out a roster that has most of the players with eligibility from last year on it again for next year, and Ajapong not on there. So for me, losing Cleo Ajapong, someone who I expected to be their biggest, contributor to next year's team, that is too much of a blow for me. So I'm going to say no. They're going to remain in that 12th or worse area at Big 12 championships.
And my answer here is no as well. I can't really honestly give you a lot of logic and reason behind it because for everything Dustin said there, you do return your sprints. You do lose out Cleo Ajapong because I think I was reading the same thing that she might be in the transfer portal, and I noticed she wasn't on the roster as well. But I don't have a lot of logic behind it. They very well could do it. I need to see it before I say that they can do it.
I'm unfortunately no as well. Pretty simple. I've got to see it, or at least see it from this program as a Big 12 member before I can confidently make this kind of prediction for the women's track team specifically. Not that there aren't promising athletes. You mentioned Shiana Hall, Dustin, in the jumps, and there's a decent chance a transfer comes in and is a standout athlete who we're not considering at this point as well. If this was at least 12th instead of better than 12th, I might have considered it more. I mean, you had 12th at indoors last season, but better than 12th at a Big 12 championship right now requires a level of improvement I'm not sure I feel comfortable predicting at this point.
All right, so for the first time, I think that's the first time all three of us have have agreed, and unfortunately is in a pessimistic way. But we will move on to swimming and diving here. And this last year's question was, will swim and dive finish top 3 at the Big 12 championships? We all said yes. And by golly, guys, they did it. The Cougs finished in 3rd place yet again. So this year's question is, will U of H finish within 100 points of an Arizona an Arizona school at the Big 12 championships? And the bold question is, they'll finish ahead of an Arizona school. Last year, they finished 248 points behind University of Arizona. But the year before, they finished 28.5 points back. And that is what led me to say that they will do it. They have done it before. They did it in their first season with Arizona in the Big 12 championships. The team last year, I remember Sam and I really based this off how I felt they did last year. And last year, I just remember Sam and I, whenever we would talk about swim and dive, talk about how young the team was. And they were able to do it with that young roster. And a lot of their swimmers and a lot of the divers were sophomores and juniors, and I think you're only going to get better. I'm not going to sit here and tell you I went through and tore down every single University of Arizona swimmer and diver to be like, oh yeah, we'll catch them this year. But I just saw you finished 248 behind them. I think you kept a lot of your roster, and so I'm going with yes here. I don't think they are going to finish ahead of an Arizona school necessarily. Yet again, one of those things that I need to see before I can commit to it. But I do believe that the Cougs will finish within 100 points of an Arizona school. Sam, what say you, bud?
I'm also going with yes, but not going all the way with the bold prediction. I do think the Cougars will finish within 100 points of an Arizona school at the Big 12 championships this coming season. There were certainly some good seniors who exhausted their eligibility after the most recent season, Flo Peter chief among them, but there are enough good athletes who will be back, including, I would say, your top athlete from either the diving or swimming specialties, Michelle McLeod, entering her senior season. This is also such a good developmental program that I expect some year-on-year improvement from some of these athletes who may not have been your absolute creme de la creme top athletes a season ago. Now, again, like I said at the top, I don't think this program is necessarily ready to overtake either of the Arizona programs. Likely, Arizona is probably the one you're going to be finishing closest to in second for my prediction here, but I do believe U of H can reduce the gap to less than 100 points at the coming championship. This is where you see some of those two schools' institutional advantages from years and years of having Pac-12 money come into play here, but I still think U of H and U of H fans can continue to be very happy with where Tanika Jamison has a swimming and diving program. So I think we'll be third again, probably within 100 points of Arizona, which I think could be called serious improvement. And then, maybe Michelle McLeod really goes off and has an incredible season and does more at NCAAs than maybe she did this season.
It does kind of feel like the obvious pick is to say yes here, which would be a bummer because we finally just all agreed on the last question, and we're very close to doing it twice in a row. But that's not going to happen because I am getting bold. I'm saying Houston finishes ahead of the University of Arizona, which, as Sam alluded to, we say an Arizona school. We're talking about the University of Arizona. Arizona State, barring something crazy, is going to continue to run this conference. But like Bobby's alluded to, Houston has gone from nipping at Arizona's heels 2 years ago to being a little bit further back this year as the teams once again finished in the same top three order. But I looked at this roster. Y'all talk about the team being young. I did a quick scan of the Big 12, all the Big 12 events at the championship from last year, and I tried to catch every time a Houston athlete finished in the top 8. I may have missed one or two. I think I got most or all of them. I found 25 instances, obviously often the same person doing it more than once, but I found 25 instances where Houston finished in the top 8 in an individual event. 21 of those 25 were accomplished by someone with eligibility remaining. It was 10 athletes combined who did that. All 10 of them are on the roster for next year. So all the ones that had eligibility coming back, that's almost everyone that was scoring points for you at the Big 12. Even more impressively, 4 of those 10 athletes were freshmen. That makes me think that Tanika Jamison is really hitting her stride in recruiting. Makes me think that there's every reason to believe that she's going to bring in multiple athletes once again this year who can compete at the Big 12 level right away as freshmen. And I didn't do a full list looking for the University of Arizona. I did like the final day where there's a lot of events. I just kind of quick scanned where was the University of Arizona finishing in the top 8. Most of their top 8 finishes, I would say it was about, not most, I would say it was about close to 50-50 seniors versus non-seniors. So that is my quick scan, just saying, you know what? Arizona's losing a lot more than we are to graduation. Therefore, Houston, not only are they going to be within 100 points, they're catching Arizona for a second place finish at Big 12 championships.
I love it. I'm glad one of us went bold on this one.
Yep, me too.
So with Cougar women's golf next, last year we asked, will this team finally, for the first time to that point, qualify for NCAA championships? All 3 of us said yes, and we could do the little, the universal holding the hands together, clasping them in celebration. We were all right. The Cougars finally did that in addition to finishing second at Big 12 championship, so we didn't ask about that specifically. Our question for this coming season with a fairly new roster, new head coach and Rachel Pollack, we asked, will Cougar women's golf finish top 5 Big 12 championships, with potential bold prediction here being they will finish top 2 at Big 12 championships. I agonized over this one, guys. I'm going to say no to this one, and that is not any kind of short or long-term negative statement on Cougar women's golf or your new head coach, Rachel Pollack. I had this as a yes, then a no, then a yes, and then ultimately I finished here with a no. It's going to be close, but this is a pretty deep women's golf league. I don't believe U of H in the coming season will be able to finish top 5, though I fully expect them to be around the top half of the teams in the Big 12 tournament in an NCAA regional when it's all said and done. My expectations of this team right now are about where they were 2 or 3 seasons ago when the veteran core from last year's team were all earlier in their college careers. Eventually, I do believe Coach Pollack can get this program back to where they were this past season in terms of competing at Big 12 championships to win the whole thing and maybe potentially advance to the NCAA championship round like they did this past spring. But 1 year in for the new coach with a largely new roster is a bit too soon for me to expect or predict top 5 or even top 2 at this point. Dustin, what do you have for this one?
Yeah, I have very similar notes to everything you just said there. I'm a no, and again, literally my first note is I'm a no, and that's not a lack of confidence in the Rachel Pollack hire. So very similar to what you said, but that's for me just a somber look at how many talented athletes are gone from this year's roster, and an acknowledgement of the strength of the conference that we're in. My kind of thought was, this past year's team was the best team in program history, and I think we'll have a solid program that's maybe more akin to like the 2 years before that. The 2 years before that, even some very good U of H teams, not the best we've ever had, but some very good U of H teams finished 6th and 7th in the Big 12 in their previous 2 seasons. So for me, that was kind of my baseline, watching that only one of the 3 years we've been here have we gotten in that top 5. So for me, that's just, I'm kind of relatively confident that this program won't skip too much of a beat with the coaching change, but ultimately top 5, again, real tough one. I think Houston will be on that borderline. I think they'll be close, but that was just a little bit too optimistic for me with a first-year head coach.
Yeah, so I'm going to go with yes here, mainly because it's just pure optimism and I want it to happen, I think, more than anything. But you look at some of the transfers that have come over. You have Jackie Gonzalez-Howard from Wingate, who was ranked number 34 in the national rankings. I think she's going to be very good. You also brought over Daniela Campillo Martinez over from ULM, came over with Coach Pollack, who has shown that she can go low at times. 9 under in the ULM tournament last year, won that tournament, won multiple times last year, also won the Jayhawk Invitational. So I think you can see a lot there. And then you still return, your alternate from your Big 12 team and your NCAA tournament team in Emilia Viesto. I thought she had moments last year where she looked like she could be really good. I'm excited for Ellen Yates, who was a really good amateur, a really good junior. She's still currently an amateur, but was a really good junior over in England. So yeah, I think it may be me hoping more than actual logic here, but I do think that this team will compete and finish top 5 at the Big 12s.
All right, that brings us to men's golf, where last year we asked, will the Cougars finish in the top 3 at the Big 12 championships? Sam and I said no. Bobby said yes. It was a pretty good team last year, but the Big 12 championships was not their best event. They finished,
and then they almost made the national championship. Sorry.
Right, yeah. They finished 14th at that one, though, so missed that one by a pretty wide margin. This year, we are simply asking, will Houston continue its streak of making a regional? And if you want to get bold, you can say yes. And in fact, they will make it. They will do what they didn't quite do this past year. They will make it to NCAA championships. So, I said that top 5, which is a little bit too high for me. This is a bar set at a level that I can get behind. I'm going to be a yes on this one for no reason more than that I've just seen this Cougar program sneak into regionals with some pretty mediocre teams in the last decade at times. Getting into a regional, much easier in golf than in 64-team tournament sports. So I would say that I'm definitely cautiously optimistic for the Andrew Dana era. And while I'm not expecting to be blown away in year 1, yeah, I do expect a regional. And that's especially true when you've got some reliable seniors like Grant Doggett and Chi-Chun Chen to build around. So, Bobby, how about you?
Yeah, you mentioned Chi-Chun Chen and Grant Doggett. Grant Doggett, arguably one of your best players last year, maybe your number 2 last year. And then you bring in probably 3 of their top players from FGCU. Coach Dana brings them over as well. So I am going to go with a yes of making a regional here. I want to say yes on the NCAA championships, but I can't quite get there. I wouldn't be shocked if it happened if you end up doing really well in a regional, because you have seen that before. But yeah, I definitely think a regional will happen. And this the Big 12. Sorry, I'm just going on a small golf thing here. The Big 12 conference really good at men's golf as well, but I think you're going to be able to compete there. Maybe not win the thing, but definitely do better than you did last year. So, Sam?
This is a pretty easy yes for me as well, though I'm not going all the way with the bold prediction. I have a really difficult time seeing Andrew Dana's first team here being anything but at least somewhat improved over the last spring season. And considering last season's team still went to a regional after a pretty poor Big 12 championship, seemed like an easy pick to me to assume that they'll at least equal that this coming season. Yes, the best golfer in last year's team, Hudson Weibel, has graduated, but appears all of the projected returning U of H golfers are staying. Will be joined by some of the best golfers from Dana's last Florida Gulf Coast program as well. I like the roster mix. I like the depth. I really like Dana's career track record. And in most measurable ways, I expect this will be an improved season, though like Dustin, I don't expect it to be a season that blows me away. So I'm saying, yes, this team keeps their streak of going to a regional live.
All right, so looks like next up is going to be tennis. And last year the question was over or under 2.5 Big 12 wins. Sam and Dustin went with over. I went under, and the Cougs went 8-5 in Big 12 play. So I have to eat crow there, and we'll fully admit that I was wrong. I should have listened to the tennis guy there. But this year's question is: does U of H qualify top 10 finish for the Big 12 tournament? And then the bold is they will also make their first NCAA tournament since 2014. I went yes on both, not because I am a big tennis guy and I can absolutely believe it, but everything Sam has told me about this tennis team this offseason and the fact we were able to keep most of our roster. The coach seems very excited to be here, in maybe not the hire that we kind of expected when we heard that we were hiring the Auburn coach. I'm pretty sure, Sam, you can correct me if I'm wrong, we thought it was the other coach. We didn't even think this.
No, you're right. Yeah.
So, but her ability to hold on to some of the players has led me to believe that I think this team will be better, because you just are going to naturally get better as you have players kind of develop. And so, yeah, I'm going with yes, and I think they'll make the NCAA tournament. I think they probably should have made it last year, from my understanding, and I think this year's team will be better. Therefore, I think they will make the NCAA tournament as well. So, Sam, as our resident tennis guy, hit me.
Man, I feel bad now for not going with the bold prediction. I'm going with yes. I do believe this team will qualify for the Big 12 tournament and finish in the top 10 in the conference standings. As the tennis guy, you might expect I'd go for the bold prediction, but as much as I'm thrilled with Valeria Zaliva retaining every player who had eligibility to return from last season's team, you have almost no choice but to be a top heavier team in the lineup this coming season, which I think is good and bad. Last year's team was deeper and better than any U of H team since the last one that made the NCAAs back in 2014. But you probably didn't have an athlete on either of the top two courts in singles who could hang in that discipline against the highest end players from the best Big 12 programs. I could absolutely see any of the returning starters, whether that's Valeria Croatina, Eva Sepper, Petia Drame, or even Denver transfer Natalia Sinkova, developing into a good top two courts player, which is good. But on the flip side, you're not going to have absolute killers like Croatina or the now graduated Sophie Schouten on the lower courts either, which I think made you such a deep, consistent team. This is a long way of saying I think the lineup will look different, but still capable of equaling being a good Big 12 program again, like last season. I'm just not ready to predict NCAAs with a new coach and in some spots in your lineup, a younger roster. But I still think having two strong seasons in a row would be a huge, huge deal for this program in a very good tennis conference. So I feel bad for not going full bold prediction here, but I do believe this team will at least equal what they did last season. Dustin, what'd you pick for this one?
You know, it's funny. On the surface, when I first looked at this question and you first posed this as the question, will they be top 10? At first I was like, well, that feels easy, right? They went 8-5. They were tied for 6th. I don't feel like they're going to drop off that much. And then I looked at the standing and realized the 10th place team was 7-6. So the team on the borderline only won one less match than you did. And the team right behind them in 11th place, oh yeah, that was Oklahoma State, now coached by one Kat Adamovich. Very unlikely to stay in 11th place for very long. So there really is very little.
They did.
There you go. So, I think very little margin for error here to stay within the top 10. That said, everybody else that qualified for the Big 12 tournament, other than Houston last year, made the NCAA tournament also. So it does feel like if you can stay in that top 10, your chances of also qualifying for the NCAA tournament, not too bad. Again, Houston was pretty close this past year. And I think that with Drame Seppa and Croatina coming back, Coach Zaleva has the pieces in place to put a strong team together right away. So, Sam, I'm going to make you feel even worse. You're the only one not getting bold. I'm also getting bold and saying this team makes the NCAA tournament.
I love it. Clearly the takeaway here, honestly. So we'll go Cougar baseball next. This past season, we asked, would this team win 10 Big 12 games Dustin and I said no. Bobby, you said yes. Unfortunately, Dustin and I were right as the program went 7-23 in Big 12 play this past season. So for the coming season, we are asking a little bit more modest question here with new head coach Will Davis in a basically entirely new roster here in Cougar Red and White. Will U of H avoid last place in the Big 12? The bold prediction being yes, and they'll be one of the final 10 teams remaining at the Big 12 tournament. Fellas, it's been a while since I made a bold prediction here, and it's happening. Yes, and they'll be one of the final 10 teams remaining in the Big 12 tournament. If this number was any less than 10, I'm not sure I'd be feeling as bold, guys. But even with a team I'm confident will be less talented than the 2026 version of Houston Cougar baseball, I'm also confident the coaching inputs and the buy-in from the players here will be better because, quite frankly, you couldn't do a lot worse in that department last spring in terms of talent and the coaching staff being able to coax that needed performance out of the roster. I mean, you only need to look at how many players – we talked about this last episode, actually, our season 11 finale. How many players from that 2026 team are now playing for other big name programs, not to mention your largest draft class in 7 years, in a smaller draft than you had 7 years ago? I think confirms that just wasn't happening for whatever reason in Todd Whitting's final year as head coach. Still don't believe this is an NCAA tournament team or even a top 8 in the Big 12 standings team next year, but I believe they'll clear the bar to make the Big 12 postseason and surprise someone early in that event, which will get them to be one of the final 10 teams. This is probably my most on a limb vibes-based pick out of all of them, but I'm sticking with it. I'm going with the bold prediction for Cougar baseball. Dustin, what do you have for this one?
I like it. I did not get bold, but I did say yes, the Cougars are going to get out of the cellar. Again, kind of a vibes-based pick as well. You know, it's not like the soccer or the volleyball questions. I'm not going to talk for half an hour like I did with those ones. But my main thought is even some extremely uninspiring Todd Whitting teams managed to avoid the cellar his first 2 years in the Big 12, only falling back down to last place this past season. So all I've really got on this, I didn't do too much research on this question. I mostly have just been listening to you guys announce the transfers on the pod this summer. But I feel good enough based on what y'all have told me that I'm going to say, yeah, they do just enough to get out of last place, even though I'm not quite ready to say that they'll, qualify for or win a game or get a bye at the Big 12 tournament, which would be required to get bold. So I'm just going to say a regular old yes, they'll get out of last place.
All right, so I am going to go with the bold as well. So I can the transfers actually kind of make sense when you look at it. They're all pretty much the same kind of guy, especially pitching wise, guy who gets a lot of strikeouts, doesn't walk a lot, but does get hit really hard. And it's clear they're going for something. And they see something in that the guy's hitting the strike zone a lot, and they like that, and that's something that they're aiming for. It doesn't feel like they're just throwing things against the wall and seeing what sticks. Sometimes it's felt like the previous regime did that. They just wanted guys who were good, but they didn't know what they were looking for. And so you didn't have a philosophy, I guess you could say, is kind of what it felt like to me. But now I kind of can see what they are going for here. And so, yeah, I think they are going to be one of the final 10 teams remaining at the Big 12 tournament as well. So that's where I'm at on that one.
Very nice. Love it, guys. That'll take us to our last sport before we have a wild card at the end. But our last sport is Cougar softball. Last year, we asked, will the Cougar softball team have a better team ERA than the year prior? The year prior ERA was 5.37. They did not. They got over 2 runs worse from there. And we all said, yes, they would get better.
Oh.
They got 2 runs worse.
There's no way they can be worse, right? Psych.
Famous last words.
Went from 5.37 to 7.44. Remarkably, an ERA that implies more than 1 earned run allowed per inning. Not great. This year, we're not going to ask ERA questions anymore because they're just depressing. So we're going to ask the same question we asked about the baseball team, which is, will this team get out of last place in the Big 12? I said no. This is not the first year that Houston gets out of the cellar in the Big 12, which they have done 3 years in a row coming. Every year, Houston has never finished anywhere other than in last place in the Big 12. I say they're doing it again. Why would I expect otherwise? Nobody I've seen coming in makes me think that we're finally going to pitch well enough to do better. I think, in fact, we're going to hit worse than we did last year when we were 4 games back of anybody else in the Big 12. It's hard to find reasons for optimism around this program. Depressing as it is, I said yes. I said no, we're not going to get out of last place. And honestly, this is maybe the question I thought the least long about.
Yep. I'm a no as well. It's for all the reasons opposite of baseball. Like softball to me hasn't brought anybody. I don't see what they're doing. I don't know who's going to step in the circle. To your point, Dustin, it looks like we may even hit worse. But I don't know how much lower the ERA is going to go than what it is. I haven't seen anyone who makes me go, oh man, yeah, that's the transfer we were looking for, or that's the freshman who's going to come in here and absolutely blow everyone's mind. Haven't seen it, and I have no reason to believe that it's going to happen this year. Sam?
Would love to go oppo of you two, but I can't. I am also a no. Still too many unknowns in the pitching staff for me. Even if I think your new pitching coach, Shelby Miller, is more qualified to oversee U of H's pitching than their predecessor, I can envision the pitching at least being marginally better than it was last spring. The biggest problem for me is there's a big gap between where U of H will be, even with some improvement, which I actually do expect a little improvement, and the level you need to be at to not finish dead last of the conference for a fourth season in a row. Also, even if the staff has retained a lot of its recruits specifically, you're losing one of the best hitters in the Big 12 in Matty Hartley.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we'll say going to last season, you also lost Brooke Wells off of the 2025 team. And for any of the problems you had last spring, Cougars generally hit pretty well. I don't think this is the Cougars dropping off a cliff in terms of their hitting, but it's hard to predict dramatic improvement with the projected lineup and a hypothetical team that pitches slightly better in 2027, but is still probably one of the worst, if not the worst in the Big 12. I just have a hard time seeing that adding up to enough conference wins to not still be dead last in the Big 12. Sincerely hope I'm wrong with this one, but also not one I thought very long about picking no on, to be honest.
Yeah, it kind of sucks that our two that we agree 100% on are pessimistic, but it happens.
And they're pessimistic for low bars. It's like, can women's track do better than 12th? Can softball not be in last?
Yeah, not a great look for those programs, guys. So just like last year was the first year.
Yes,
we introduced the wild card. We introduced the wild card where you could make your own kind of bold statement. Sam went with Connor Wegman on an all Big 12 team. Dustin went with a 1,000-yard receiver and rusher, and then I went with women's hoops in the NIT at least. None of us got those right. Good job, fellas. I figured now, since we've gone through all of them, I'll announce the standings of where we finished last year, unless, Dustin, you wanted to do it.
No, I just wanted to complain about how unbelievably close I was, because I thought a 1,000-yard rusher and receiver was a really good, bold prediction, given where our offense was the year before. Dean Connors, 977 rushing. Amari Thomas, 966 receiving. So close. I should have said 900 yard.
Dustin,
950 yard.
I had to listen to the worst country album of all time because we gave a meaningless rushing touchdown to LSU at the end of the Texas Bowl. So while I sympathize, buddy, I've been there.
Couldn't be me. It couldn't be. Now, the final standings, I did finish DFL. Dustin coming in first place at 13 points. Sam, very close behind with 12 points. And then me, did I even watch sports the year before? Coming in dead last with 9 points. Not a good look for me. But overall, I love doing it. But this year, we brought it back. We're doing wild card again. And I'm going to start. And I, once again, am 100% certain that I have the wildest wild card bold take here. I am going to predict that U of H baseball makes a regional.
Oh, okay.
All right.
That's going to be my bold take. But the part that I think is really bold, and I don't want this to be official because I know last year I said they would be on women's basketball would be on the bubble for the tournament. I didn't imply NIT until the end. I think this baseball team is going to be one of the final two teams in a regional. They will make a regional final. I do believe that. I can just see what they're building with this roster. Like I said, when we previewed them, they're trying to find things that they think are successful. I can see what they're trying to accomplish here. So I'm going to go with U of H baseball making a regional. I feel it is bold enough because, guys, their question was, will they finish last in the Big 12? So I do believe that is sufficiently bold enough. But I do, even if we're going next level, if you want to give me 3 points, if we make a regional final, I very well could see that happening. So Sam, what's your wild card bold take here, buddy?
I'm going a little deep cut here. I think Cougar men's distance runner Zach Miller will qualify for one of the NCAA track and field distance events. And that'll be the first time we've had an athlete qualify in a distance event since Brian Barraza's final college season in 2018. I realize it's a deeper cut. Miller did have one of the more promising freshman seasons from a distance athlete, but there's still a huge leap to go from what Miller did as a freshman, which was, I think, he finished 10th at Big 12 indoors in the mile, 8th at Big 12 outdoors in the 1500. Still a pretty big jump to go from what he did last season to NCAA qualification, but I think Miller's capable of it. And for a bonus, I think we'll have the best men's U of H finish for a cross-country athlete at a conference championship since Barraza as well. At different points, I had other bold predictions. I don't pretend mine's as bold as Bobby's is here, but I think we're going to see something for the first time here in about a decade with Zach Miller. I gave a few others thought, but I thought this was the boldest of the various ideas I had. Dustin, what is your bold prediction?
All right, I'll close it out here. And I just officially, Bobby, I got you down for baseball makes a regional, not a regional final, but a regional. And Sam, just to make it easier, I just threw NCAA qualifier in a distance event, which I think is what you're going for. And
yep,
yeah, would be very bold there. So I kind of alluded to mine way up front. So I'm taking one of my predictions from the beginning one step further. Houston Cougar football 2026 Big 12 champions. That is my
all right.
Here. Most of my reasoning I gave up front. I think all the attention around Texas Tech is going to take its toll. Aside from the Red Raiders, I don't think there are any other teams with just a different level of talent in the Big 12 compared to U of H. I think the Cougs can win in the trenches. We've got a senior quarterback the team believes in. I think we'll be strong on both sides of the ball. And I think we've got the best coach in the conference to boot. Why not us? Houston Cougar football, Big 12 champs 2026.
Love it.
I told you I believe in it, buddy. You heard me when we were talking football. I think this team could go 12-0, baby. Let's go. Big 12 champs. Let's go. I love it.
All right. Did also want to quickly throw in before on our way out here, because I think I forgot to mention up top, this is also another first we're doing this year. I put together a Google form that our Patreon patrons can vote in. So if you want to play along at home and see how you do picking against the podcast hosts, Sam, I'm sure will drop the link on the Patreon for our patrons to see. So you can pick against us. We've even got a fill in the blank at the end for you can make your own wild card prediction. Make sure you pick something genuinely wild, or otherwise, if you just say, if you pick something boring,
football will make a bowl game. It's okay.
We will not give you points for that. Pick something genuinely bold, but you can pick against us. And if we'll see how the wisdom of the crowd does against the podcast hosts next year. If you make a genuinely bold prediction that comes true, we're asking for your name up top, so we'll give you a shout out on the pod, I'm sure, next year on your
absolutely.
On your pick. So hope to see you guys making some picks against us. Excited to see how that all transpires, and excited to like y'all said up front, excited to get into some freaking Cougar sports here in the next couple of weeks.
Let's go, boys. Let's go. I'm super excited about it. And if you're super excited about it and you listen to an hour and a half worth of Cougar talk because you're pumped for it and you want to hear what we think is going to happen, we appreciate you so much. As Dustin used to say, you are our favorite listeners. But if you do want to reach out to us and you have some feedback, you can find us on social media at Twitter at SH Podcast. You can find us on Blue Sky at podcast.bsky.social. If you have sworn off all of your social media, you can always reach out to us via email, shpodcast@gmail.com. If you want to participate in this and get a shout out and see if you know ball better than the guys who host this podcast, you can find us on Patreon, patreon.com/shpodcast. $5 a month gets you the premium content that we are going to have up. And then I also want to shout out, Sam is going to be doing some writing this year. It's called Clause and Effect. Go read his first post. It's really good. I've known it was going to happen, but I didn't read the post before he posted it. It's tough when your best friend does a writing thing and he doesn't even send you the draft of it before he posts it.
I've spammed it so much to you. I was like, all right, I'll stop bothering this guy about my writing shit here.
But in all seriousness, it's really good. And it's
Clause and Effect, CALWAWSNEFFECT.substack.com.
All right, perfect. There it is. So I just wanted to give one of my best friends a good shout out there. Dustin, you plug in anything while we're here?
No, I got nothing. I also liked Sam's writing bit, so
I appreciate you too, buddy.
Use my time to replug Sam's Clause and Effect.
All right, well, that's it for us. We thank you guys so much, and as always,
go Cougs.
All right. Go Cougs! Let's go!